It was a really cool experience, literally, that we were able to build a small snowman on one of the hills or bergs up in Tromsø, and it was like a one-of-a-kind experience for me because I haven't experienced that in the summer, that I was able to build a snowman. I don't go skiing, so it was really awesome.
We would like to thank Hungarian Telecom for providing a professional studio in Budapest and supporting the work of podcasters in Hungary.
I'm Ágnes Gárdonyi, freelancer in journalism and communication. I mainly cover culture, science, and sustainability. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook.
And I am Karolina Czako. I'm a communication and sustainability consultant. As a freelancer, I work across countries, the EU. I'm based in Hungary. You can turn to me for non-ESG related sustainability projects and also communications and PR. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or on the AK Campus podcast Gmail address as well, which you can find in the About section.
In this episode of our mini-series, we're talking about something that's getting really popular, skipping the super hot places for summer and heading north instead. A coolcation is when you take your vacation to cooler places to escape extreme heat. Think about Scandinavia, the UK, Iceland, Canada, Alaska, or anywhere that stays comfortably cool when other places are overheating. We'll share our favorite northern destinations, what to expect when you go somewhere less touristy, and how to plan it without breaking the bank. If you've been thinking about escaping the heat this summer, this episode is for you. Karolina, what are the best northern destinations for a cool summer vacation that still feel like a real getaway?
I think there are many, but it's very hard to make it budget friendly. However, I will give some tips. I spent time in Iceland and spent summers in Sweden when I lived there. Iceland was a real coolcation destination. I traveled with a group and we needed warm fall and almost winter coats, hats, mittens and scarves, especially in the internal regions of the island. Reykjavik was somewhat warmer. It was interesting to have daylight at night as well. I was literally able to read a book without the lights on. Iceland also has a completely unique nature. There are no indigenous trees, as it's a volcanic island and it's new. So local trees you see are actually imported from similar climates such as Russia, Alaska, Canada, as they told us. Some compare Iceland to being on a different planet, like the moon or something. It's a very unique place. I really recommend it. I lived in Stockholm for a few years, and mostly it was cooler than Budapest, for example. But once there was a heat wave, and staying inside the apartments that were optimized for long winters was unbearable. People went to parks and to shopping malls, as AC is not common and not necessary in the apartments for most of the year. Northern Sweden stays colder the more north you go. So imagine that Stockholm has a more moderate climate compared to what you would imagine a stereotypical northern country climate. But if you go to Kiruna or the ice hotel in the winter, then it gets really cold, so you really need special clothes.
It's interesting. I've been to Iceland in winter. It was December, and I heard that it's a whole other scenery and experience if you go in the summer. So I definitely have to go back.
Me too. I look forward to going back one day.
Which regions or cities in Europe are becoming popular for coolcations?
Iceland, Reykjavik, is getting some overtourism. It already started when I was there over a decade ago. I also heard that Norway, and in Norway, Bergen especially, is getting more popular too. I only visited Oslo once. It was nice to have a comfortable climate and being surrounded by beautiful nature. It was also like a summer vacation. That year I went to Sweden and to Norway, and it was just very comfortable in the middle of the summer. It wasn't problematic at all, and I really enjoyed it. But tourism was already a problem, and you don't know as a tourist if you're being overpriced because everything's very expensive anyway. So you can just kind of guess. But in Iceland, they have some cheaper food options, which are still good because they're actually very good with the quality. But either way, it's just expensive compared to, I think, most places in the world.
Yeah, it was interesting, also interesting for us. I went to Bali in 2016, which is one of the most cheapest countries. And in the next year, in 2017, I went to Norway, also in the summer, to Tromsø. It's far up east. And it was a really cool experience, literally, that we were able to build a small snowman on one of the hills or bergs up in Tromsø, and it was like a one-of-a-kind experience for me because I haven't experienced that in the summer, that I was able to build a snowman. I don't go skiing, so it was really awesome to do that, and I still have that photo with the small snowman and Tromsø, the city in the background.
That's very cool. Actually, it's one of the few places you can do that, because otherwise you can go to the southern hemisphere where it's winter when we have summer here in the northern hemisphere, and in colder places maybe you can try the snowman, but then it's a longer trip.
What should travelers expect when visiting less traditionally touristy northern areas?
What they should expect is that these areas, especially in Europe, it's expensive because, for example, Scandinavian countries have higher taxes. I think they are getting more tourists now because people think it's less touristy to go there in the summer. And I really have two tips. Take the cold seriously and have warm clothes, because if you are in Iceland, they have a very cold climate. But the good news is that they also have tax-free shopping. So it's the best place to get the winter gear. I have a coat that is so warm, and I'm not joking, it's like really warm, that I can only wear it below minus 10 Celsius. So above it, basically, I just feel very warm. It's a really thick coat, and it's really well made. You cannot really find this in many other countries, even if they are in colder climates. In Sweden, I haven't found any. Maybe in specialist camping shops or hiking shops, they might have it. I also like Icelandic knitwear, such as wool sweaters, and these are very useful on winter days too, or if, for example, there's a problem with the heating, it actually makes you comfortable if there's a temporary problem with the heating. It happened, for example, that for 1 week where I was working, we had no home office, but we also had no heating. It was cold outside, it was cold inside, and I was just comfortable in my Icelandic sweater. And if you do buy coats and winter clothes in Iceland, make sure that you keep your receipts that qualify for a minimum limit, because you don't get the VAT back in the shop, but you get it back at the airport.
That's really good to know. And also about talking about clothes, they have a saying in Scandinavia and in the northern countries that there's no bad weather, only bad clothing. But,
True.
But it's easy for them because they have these such great quality and warm clothing that you don't have in Hungary, for example. You just cannot buy these in Hungary.
That's true, but in some cases, like the knitwear, you can actually order it, custom order it for your own size. You take your own size and then you go on Etsy, for example, and you can find real authentic Icelandic ladies who make these, or men who do these. I did try to order a similar coat from the same brand, but they unfortunately mostly only send items to other Scandinavian countries and countries that are close. So you're right that from these companies it's practically impossible to get it to Hungary, to Hungary.
You have to go there. How do local experiences differ in cooler destinations compared to typical summer spots?
Cool destinations are more about sightseeing and hiking. It's not about lounging on the beach all day, obviously, because it's colder. There is one exception, however. Iceland has many hot water springs, so you can get to enjoy the water, but for me it was a bit uncomfortable to get in and out of the water because the air was still cold. But it's a fun and unforgettable experience. I think in the Blue Lagoon, which is famous and over touristy, it was better, or somehow also the weather was better, but in some other remote locations we were actually very far from the bathhouse where you could change. So imagine that you are in a 30-40 degree or even warmer hot spring, and then you get out and it's like 10-15 plus Celsius, and it's cold in a bathing suit and and in a towel. So it is an interesting and a little bit shocking for the body experience.
But it's also healthy, as I heard.
Yes. I know what you mean. I mean, going from very cold to very warm, and it's very famous in Finland where they have saunas, and then they also have these, basically go into a lake or some icy water, and it actually helps apparently, but I'm not a doctor, so don't take this as medical advice. It helps the veins to stay flexible, so it's good for health.
We've talked about how expensive these countries are, and what are the budget and booking tips for planning a Coolcation?
I don't use hostels because I don't really trust them, or maybe I just grew out of this community living situation, but I never really trusted hostels. But that's my preference. So since I don't use hostels, I can say that booking flights and accommodation should be done very early. It won't feel like it's a budget deal, but maybe it will be less expensive. Many places also have great and safe street food, which is obviously less expensive than restaurant food. In Iceland, we enjoyed many kinds of seafood sold from simple street vendors and also other kinds of foods. Sweden also has a great selection of fish, and smoked salmon is one of my favorites. Since it's common, you can find it surprisingly cheaply compared to Hungary, for example, where unfortunately fresh fish or smoked fish is expensive.
And also, speaking of budget, if you go to North Norway, you have to count in the cost of renting a car, because they have some public transport, but it's like not so comfortable to wait for a bus that comes like every 2 hours.
Yes, so that was our take on Coolcation. I wish that some of our audience share their experiences in the comments and we have a discussion about it. And thank you for listening.
See you in the next episode.
See you.
That was it for today's episode. You've been listening to AK Compass, guiding listeners through evolving ideas, directions. I'm Ágnes Gárdonyi.
And I'm Karolina, Czako. Subscribe, rate, review if you'd like to support us. Thank you for listening.